It was a Saturday afternoon, and my wife, Jenna, was tending to her roses in the front yard. Our quiet cul-de-sac usually felt like a peaceful haven, but that day, Karen, the self-proclaimed enforcer of the HOA, was already pacing the street with her clipboard. Her blonde bob swayed as she muttered about violations and property values. I was inside repairing a kitchen cabinet when I heard shouting. By the time I stepped outside, Jenna was standing near the sidewalk, hands raised, trying to de-escalate. Karen stood 3 feet away, waving her phone in one hand and a small canister in the other. "You're in violation of HOA guidelines," Karen barked. "That garden is too close to the sidewalk." Jenna, still calm, explained that the garden had been there for years, long before the HOA even existed. But Karen wasn't listening. Her eyes darted around like she was looking for backup. When Jenna tried to walk away, Karen stepped forward and, without warning, sprayed pepper spray directly in her face. Jenna screamed, dropping her gardening tools as she stumbled back. I bolted across the yard, grabbing Jenna and guiding her toward the hose. The burning smell hit my nose instantly, and my blood boiled. "What is wrong with you?" I yelled at Karen. "She threatened me," Karen shouted, still recording on her phone. Threatened her? My wife couldn't threaten a fly. Neighbors began pouring out of their homes, some filming, others rushing to help Jenna. Karen seemed to realize the crowd wasn't on her side. But instead of leaving, she doubled down, calling someone on speakerphone and demanding immediate HOA intervention. I called 911 explaining that my wife had just been assaulted. The dispatcher confirmed officers were on the way. Meanwhile, Jenna's eyes were red and swollen, her face wet from the garden hose as she tried to flush out the pepper spray. When the police arrived, Karen tried to spin her version of events, claiming Jenna had lunged at her, but with at least 5 neighbors willing to testify, and 3 videos showing the entire incident. The officers didn't buy it. Karen was placed in the back of a squad car, still ranting about HOA rules and legal authority. But this wasn't over. Because, as I would soon learn, the HOA's president, Karen's closest ally, was about to go down too. The morning after Karen's arrest, I woke up to a pounding on my front door. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a tailored navy suit, shiny loafers, and an expression that screamed, "I'm important." He was flanked by 2 other HOA board members, both holding clipboards like they were weapons. I opened the door just enough to speak. "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "I'm Richard Daniels, president of the HOA," the man said in a deep, rehearsed tone. "I'm here regarding yesterday's unfortunate incident with Karen." "Unfortunate?" "She pepper-sprayed my wife," I said, stepping forward. Richard smiled like a used car salesman. "Karen was simply enforcing HOA bylaws. While I regret her overzealous approach, I've been advised to inform you that Jenna was indeed in violation." I almost laughed. "So your defense is that an illegal assault is fine because you didn't like our roses?" He ignored my comment and slid an envelope into my hand. "This is an official HOA fine, $500. If you refuse to pay, we will escalate." Before I could respond, Jenna appeared behind me, still wearing sunglasses to hide the redness around her eyes. "Get off our property," she said, voice firm but calm. Richard smirked. "Ma'am, you should be careful. We have the authority to place liens." That's when my neighbor, Miguel, walked up from across the street holding his phone. "You might want to be careful, Richard," he said, "because the police are still reviewing footage from last night, and they know about the HOA's little off-the-books security fund." Richard's face lost its smug glow. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he said quickly. "Oh, I think you do," Miguel replied. "Remember the street camera your team tried to take down last month? It caught you taking cash from the HOA safe and handing it to a contractor who doesn't exist." I raised an eyebrow. "Really, that sounds criminal." Richard's voice wavered. "This conversation is over." He turned on his heel, signaling his lackeys to follow. Jenna and I exchanged a glance. This was bigger than a garden dispute. If what Miguel said was true, Karen's assault might just be the start of something that could bring the whole corrupt HOA crashing down, and I was more than ready to help it fall. The following week, I became part husband, part amateur detective. Between caring for Jenna and helping her recover, I started collecting every scrap of information I could about the HOA's operations. Miguel turned out to be a gold mine. He'd been quietly recording board meetings for months, ever since they mysteriously doubled the HOA fees. He handed me a flash drive filled with videos, spreadsheets, and scanned receipts. One file stood out, labeled Security Fund Ledger, Confidential. It showed over $40,000, withdrawn in cash within the past year, all signed off by Richard Daniels himself. The security contractor supposedly hired for the neighborhood? No business license, no online presence, just a P.O. box in another state. The more I dug, the dirtier it got. There were also multiple complaints from residents who'd been fined without evidence, many of them elderly or new to the area. The fines always seemed to coincide with Richard's urgent maintenance projects, which never materialized. Meanwhile, Karen had been released on bail, but she wasn't keeping quiet. In fact, she was posting on the HOA's community board claiming that we had assaulted her. The comments were a mess. Half the neighborhood believed her, while the other half was demanding her resignation. One night, as I was going through Miguel's files, I found something shocking, an email from Richard to Karen, dated 2 days before the pepper spray incident. It read, "If they won't comply voluntarily, make it impossible for them to stay. Do what you have to." That was the smoking gun. Richard had essentially ordered Karen to provoke us. Jenna, sitting beside me on the couch, read the email twice before speaking. "So, they wanted us gone." "Why?" Miguel answered from across the room. "Your property is the biggest lot in the HOA. They want it for a development project. They've been secretly planning. That night I decided enough was enough. I compiled every document, every video, and every witness statement into one massive evidence file. Then I sent it not just to the police, but to the county prosecutor's office. 2 days later, an unmarked car rolled slowly through the neighborhood. Officers in plain clothes got out and walked toward the HOA office at the clubhouse. Richard didn't know it yet, but his days as HOA president were numbered. The raid happened on a Thursday afternoon, just as the HOA board was wrapping up a special meeting. I was parked down the street with Miguel, Jenna in the passenger seat, when 2 squad cars and the same unmarked sedan pulled up. Within minutes, officers were walking out of the clubhouse carrying boxes of files, computers, and even the HOA's safe. The board members stood in a tight huddle on the lawn, looking pale. Then Richard emerged, flanked by 2 detectives. His usual smug confidence was gone. He was red-faced, sweating, and muttering something about misunderstandings. Moments later, the handcuffs clicked shut. The neighborhood went quiet, except for the sound of camera shutters from curious residents. Karen showed up halfway through the scene, clearly thinking she was there to defend her president. But instead of being welcomed, she was approached by an officer who handed her a fresh court summons. Her trial for assaulting Jenna had been fast-tracked, and now she was also being investigated for conspiracy. By evening, the local news vans were parked at the corner. The headline scrolling across the screen read, "HOA President Arrested on Embezzlement and Fraud Charges Board Under Investigation." Jenna and I watched from our living room, her head resting on my shoulder. For the first time in weeks, I saw her smile without pain. "It's over," she whispered. But it wasn't just over, it was a turning point. The county announced that the HOA's operations would be temporarily suspended while a state-appointed manager reviewed their finances. Multiple residents stepped forward with stories of unfair fines, harassment, and intimidation. As for Richard, the prosecutor revealed he was facing charges for embezzlement, wire fraud, and witness intimidation. If convicted, he could spend over a decade in prison. Karen, well, let's just say the footage of her pepper spraying Jenna went viral. Even people outside our town knew her name, and not in a good way. Her bail conditions included staying at least 500 feet away from us, which meant she could no longer patrol the neighborhood like a wannabe cop. The roses in our garden are blooming again. No fines, no threats, just peace. Sometimes I still catch neighbors slowing down as they pass our house, giving a little wave of solidarity. We didn't just win for ourselves. We exposed the corruption, cleared Jenna's name, and took down a president who thought he was untouchable. And as for me, I keep every piece of evidence backed up, just in case another Karen decides she wants to test us.